Hi guys, Sean Chartier again with Shit I Never Knew series. We have episode 5 today. This one is the one you've been begging for, so I went and learned a bunch of shit and now I'm ready to tell you all about it. It is, you lift it, you bought it. People want to know what is the difference between a rough country lift kit. Let's talk all 6-inch so that we don't have to get ourselves really confused. What's the difference between a 6-inch rough country, a 6-inch zone, a 6-inch Fabtech, a 6-inch BDS, a 6-inch McGaughy's, some of you kids call it McGaughy's, or a 6-inch Cognito? Honestly, diving into this, I always just thought it was price. And if you have lots of money, you run Cognito, and if you don't have lots of money, you run rough country or zone. But because you guys keep asking, I decided to do a bunch of research. I personally have been cheap my entire life. Still to this day, I'm extremely cheap. I keep running rough country because it's $1,000 for a 6-inch kit. So I've never even asked the question, because when I see the $1,500, the $2,000, the $7,000 price tags, I know that I'm not going to spend that money on a lift. So I keep just buying myself the rough countries. Here's what I've learned, because you wanted to know. And it's actually pretty badass information that I'm excited that now I know. When it comes to lift kits, when you spend $1,000, you are basically getting cross members, probably a pair of the rear shocks. You're going up 6 inches, a lot of times using spacers and different components to lift that truck up. But what it's not doing really is changing the geometry. So the key word for today is going to be geometry, bro. When you lift a vehicle, you've now left the ground. You've left where the engineers decided to make all the angles perfect. So when GM goes and designs the Denali, they're designing it to be at the ride height that it starts at. All of the tie rods, all of the ball joints, all of your wheel bearings are all designed to run at the angles that they've set them at. When you start lifting it, you're putting spacers in places and you're changing that geometry. So here's what happens. If you spend $1,000, you are basically getting the basics of what you need to go up. And what it's doing is it's taking a lot of these angles that used to be like this, and it's turning them to angles like this. And sometimes if you get way carried away with your bad self and you try to put a leveling kit on top of a lift kit, it's changing them to something like this. This is where you start to have extreme wear and where your shit starts to break and fall off going to the Walmart truck meet. That's why when you start spending money, you start getting more parts, because what they're doing is the engineers, let's talk Cognito. So let's go from rough country. I'm just going up in the air and using a lot of spacers and a lot of components just to get higher, versus Cognito. When you start diving into Cognito, you're gonna go from a cast, Junior, if you look down here, so this is a stock knuckle or spindle, depending on what you feel like calling it today. This is cast. So there's a mold, it's poured in there. This is a solid piece of metal. When you get into a Cognito knuckle, if you look closely at this thing, I'm trying not to flip the table over, you're gonna see that these things are completely fabricated and then welded. So this is a multi-piece, all welded together. This is specifically engineered and designed to change the different angles and to make it so that as you go up, so down here, let's put Cognito, as you go up, rather than just taking those angles and doing that with them, it starts to move things so that the entire angle is shifted, which makes this no longer a hot spot. It's fixing the additional wear, and it's fixing the problem of taking things that used to be like this, and it's moving everything rather than just bending it, which is what the lower cost lifts are gonna do. So with that, you're getting the different style, which is fabricated and welded, which is significantly stronger than a porous cast. Same thing with the upper control arms. So if you look for this Cognito lift that they're installing right now behind me here at Offset's Garage, you're gonna see that they're changing not only from cast again to a fabricated boxed out piece, but they're also changing the complete angle of that upper ball joint. So now you're coming at a more realistic angle for the new lifted truck, and it's not putting the excess wear and tear on that ball joint. So as you're starting to see, there is a lot of time, engineering cost, commitment of just materials and all of that you're getting with the higher end kits. So if you're spending, you know, $5,000 to $7,000 on that Cognito, it's because you're getting all these additional parts. In the rear, rather than just putting in a block underneath your leaf pack, it's actually going to come with the Deaver leaf spring kit, which is a higher stack, and then it's going to be, again, specifically engineered by Cognito to get you the proper setup. What'll happen is if you're doing blocks and you're going higher and higher and higher, you start to get that axle wrap is what you'll hear about. And it's where the axle has just too much play in it. When you're using leafs to do that, it locks everything in tightly, and it's, again, engineered for the height that you're going up. So that gets you your welded and fabricated parts. There's some additional parts, so you'll start to see in the more expensive kits on the Cognito, again, there's different braces in there for the idler and pitman arm. So it literally is going in and reinforcing the weak points from the original stock vehicle, because now you've got more weight at a higher, so you're changing your center of gravity. It's adding braces to the different steering components so that now you can strengthen that stuff up. So again, more parts, more engineering, more time. We've talked about all the different angles and ball joints and how that's going to reduce all the wear and tear, the leaf pack. So, you know, like I said, the key word is geometry. When you're changing all of that, when you're paying more money for a Cognito, they're redesigning and engineering a lot of components for that lift kit. Let's go in between now, because there's also, you know, for some people it's a sweet spot called FabTech. We see a ton of BDS. I'm not even going to try to spell McGaughey's, McGoy's. These run in between the, let's call it 1,500, 1.5 thousand to $3,500 range. And what you're starting to do here is, again, you're adding components. One of the most consistent one is on this truck here. So this one has primarily the McGoy's, I believe it's a 6.5, but same concept. If you look way down inside of here, you'll see that they've added the compression strut. So again, you're adding another component that just beefs it up. And quite honestly, when you talk to owners of trucks that, of guys that have trucks like this and they've chosen something like that, you know, a lot of times you just get the answer, I just think it looks cooler. And if you look at the truck, even from any angle, you see those big ladder bar compression struts in there, and it does look badass. It adds to the beefy look of the vehicle. So some of the stuff you're paying for it just for looks, but if you've got custom wheels on your vehicle, you're probably paid for those just for looks too. So don't get all worked up and get your panties in a bunch. You'll see the other thing that he's done with this McGoy's lift is he added the front struts from BDS. When you buy a BDS kit, a lot of those are coming with the replacement front struts. So rather than just using spacers and blocks, it's actually using the lifted vehicle, the 6-inch lift strut, and it's replacing it. So again, rather than stacking blocks and everything, you're creating that movement. He also added the upper control arms, ProComp, and that's just another example where he's kind of created his own kit. If you were to take the same concept, that's a lot what it's like when you start building up a BDS kit. So we've seen on the site that you can start adding stuff like the coilovers up front, and you can go to reservoir coilovers. You can get as carried away as you want, and that just keeps adding to that price. And that's what you're paying for. So when people are asking, what am I getting for all that extra money? Sometimes you're getting the front strut with the big reservoir pack. Why would you get that? Because it looks badass. You know, these guys aren't jumping these trucks, but even if you were, those parts are typically made to take more impact and made for the actual off-road. You know, if we go back to Cognito, the same parts that were in this kit are the same parts that they're using on the race trucks. And I mean, they've been designed and engineered to take that, if that's what floats your boat, finds your lost remote, is jumping ditches on your way to that meet. So I hope that helps. The biggest question is, why am I paying more? So I'll boil it down for you. Ultimately, when you start spending $200 to $400 more, you're probably just getting some cool shit like those front struts. If you start, or compression strut I should call it, if you start spending $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 more, you're getting a re-engineered complete system with a lot more parts, a lot higher quality fabricated parts that are specifically engineered for your vehicle to now be 6 inches taller, versus just using spacers, blocks, and different pieces to lift that thing up in the air so that it looks really badass. So I hope that helps. That is, you lift it, you bought it. And it comes down to money, folks. Buy what you can afford. I'm still probably gonna buy Rough Country because I'd rather spend the money on my wheels and my interior and some of the other pieces versus blowing my whole wad on just the lift kit. So do what you want. Peace.